and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. It is Thursday, and we're here to talk about the first two episodes of the second season of The Bad Batch on the Disney Plus. For those of you who don't know, and I may sound a little low energy today, I have a bastard of a toothache, so that'll be why I'm not exactly the way I usually am. But anyway, so The Bad Batch, for those who don't know, is a story of Clone Force 99, which are 4 clones that were given special genetic enhancements and make them unlike the other clones that served in the Republic Army during Clone Wars. They, at the end of last season, abducted, or not abducted is the wrong word, liberated another clone called Omega. She was another almost pure code of Jango Fett, which could be used to make more clones. When Tapoka City was destroyed in the end of last season, which means that Kamino is no longer making clones, we then move on to what's happening now. Now, the issue is, the interesting thing about this show, especially in Season 1, is that it does a lot of world building. You get a lot of, here's why the Empire moved away from using clones and moved into using willing conscripts, which was an interesting thing, because their thought process was, if you use a clone, the clone is not going to follow orders that that is not in their program, because the clones are programmed to an extent, but if the clone is not programmed to do something, the clone won't do it, because they, that's not what they do. So it's like, in this episode, or these 2 episodes, we get an example of that, where a clone is asked to modify a official record and change it, or lie on an official record, and he's like, I can't do that, and the Imperial officer just shoots him, which we'll get to that in a little bit, because that also plays toward Andor. But this idea that the clones have their programming and will not go against their programming is cumbersome to the Empire, because we saw in Season 1 where it's like, oh, so, we're not going to go out and commit atrocities just for the sake of committing atrocities, because that's not what we're here to do. We're here to maintain the peace for the Republic. We're not here to go and, just fuck up civilians for the sake of fucking up civilians. And it's an interesting kind of approach to show that in this way. Now, in this one, they get their new mission, which is to go to Sereno and steal Count Dooku's war chest, because Count Dooku was building money for his war and all of that, which, the war is a separatist war, and he used his power and sway as the Count of Sereno to kind of control the war a little bit, is the narrative they're going for. And I think that's the interesting thing, is that we're starting to see the beginning of the propaganda machine. Well, not really the beginning of the propaganda machine, but one of the bigger examples of the propaganda machine for the Empire start to change the narrative, where, they don't talk about Dooku as a Sith Lord. He is the one who bankrolled the Separatist rebellion against the Republic, and he is the one who was pulling the strings and using the Separatists to wage his own war. And that we're starting to see the beginnings of this. The Empire is starting to reshape the narrative about what happened during the Clone Wars, in an effort to make it seem like it was just this one guy who tried to do something, and that's why we need to have this Empire, to keep this guy from rising to power again. It's an interesting kind of approach. And I think that it very nicely plays off of what we saw in Andor, because Andor is all about what do we do to get people to rebel? It's the other side of the coin, where it's like, we have the Empire doing things that are heinous, and they're doing these disgusting things, and how do we use them? Like, what do we do to the Empire to get them to crack down on people to the point where rebellion is the only option for them? They have to rebel at risk of their own personal safety being, destroyed. And it's like we saw a microcosm of that with the prison arc, and then when we get to the finale, which that finale is so fucking good. When we get to the finale, we get a full, look at what happened. But this idea that what do we do to get people to rebel? And then this one, it's, it is laying the groundwork for where, what's it called? You're laying the groundwork for, we need to start setting it up and setting it into motion, where the Empire is, all about order, and here's why. It's like, oh, well, this is all bullshit. They were lying to you. Here's the truth. And it's not even the real truth, because we, the viewer, have seen the real truth. We know what happened in the Clone Wars. We know the truth, but the galaxy at large, especially worlds that weren't affected and are now having to change from, Republic credits to Imperial credits, they now don't know the truth. I think it's an interesting kind of way to look at it. And the other thing that really works nicely with Andor and this world we've built, and it's giving me hope. If you go over and listen to 30-minute reviews yesterday, unless you're of Google Podcasts, which for whatever reason, Google Podcasts lags a little bit. But I put up an episode yesterday about a report about episode 10 of Star Wars, or whatever the next Star Wars movie is going to be titled, that it's allegedly going to start filming in April, with some of the cast of the sequel coming back, and it said after episode 9, and I speculated that it has something to do with what they're doing in Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew. And I think that how closely the Bad Batch and Andor have kind of, hewn together, like, sewed themselves together into one kind of, quilt of Star Wars nonsense, really does a great job of highlighting exactly what it is about the Empire that made the rebellion have to happen. This idea that we need to rebel because of all that they're doing, and then also why the rebellion is able to go under the radar for so long is also kind of explained. Like, we see a little bit of that where it's like people are afraid to relay information because the messenger will be shot, in some cases literally, in some cases figuratively, by the Empire. You have that similar kind of thing here, where it's like, literally, like, the clone says, hey, Clone Force 99 is still out there. We thought they died in Tapoka City. They did not die in Tapoka City. We have to report this in. And the guy is so afraid of the repercussion of his failure that he's like, nope, we will just kill you. We will falsify the form, and we will pretend that this never happened. And it is a great little moment about that. Aside from that, I would have liked to have seen where the show is going this season a little more clearly, unless we are just doing a bunch of non sequitur adventures in which they're just going to go around and fuck shit up on behalf of this rebel cell, because again, we're shortly after the fall of the Republic, so we haven't gotten to the Rebel Alliance yet, which wouldn't happen until, around the time of, and a little after Andor, a little after Rebels, like that kind of era. But since we haven't gotten there yet, I would like a little bit of a, an idea of what we're doing next. And I really like the idea of going after Dooku's war chest. I really like that Dooku is kind of being demonized, because I think that's the best way for Dooku to be utilized post-mortem. Because that's the kind of thing that we don't Star Wars is kind of dealing with this kind of gray mortality a little bit more and more, and especially with like Tales of the Jedi showing like, okay, so here's Dooku, he is, he's growing desensitized with the Jedi. Why? And here's a completely valid reason why he's becoming desensitized with the Jedi Order. And then when he has to deal with, when the turn comes, and he does go to, he does go to Darth Sidious, it's like, oh, I can see why he did that. I can see why, because it's like the Jedi are about maintaining order in the same way the Empire is. But the problem is they're not going to go out on a limb to jeopardize galactic order for the benefit of people on a planet. So to see him have that kind of idealism where the Jedi do good, the Jedi are here to do a good thing, and then as he sees what the Jedi do, and as he sees himself get chided and treated poorly for doing what is the alleged mission of the Jedi, for him to fall back and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go and stick for me and my own. So then he leaves and all of that, and it's an interesting kind of look. And I think it could have been. I think that taking that, and then for Sidious to, in the aftermath, turn his death into a propaganda piece where he was just the bad guy who was trying to get rid of order. It's such a further tragic end to that character, in a way, where it's like, look, he killed Yaddle, yes, and he brutally killed Yaddle, and I don't think anyone's saying Dooku was a good guy, but in the same way that you can look at Magneto and be like, okay, I understand where Magneto's coming from, you can look at him and be like, oh, I totally understand where this guy's coming from and why this guy is acting the way he is. And then when we get to the end of the story where it's like, now he's dead, and what was his death for? And it's like, well, he's vilified in death in a way he couldn't possibly have fathomed. Because if the Republic had just won the war and ended, he would have been a footnote. He wouldn't have been anything major. He would have been a big figure in Sereno's history. But I think even the people of Sereno wouldn't have thought of him poorly. And they would have been like, well, he wanted to help us out. That's why he was here. And it's like, look, that's what it is. The war went poorly, but that's what it is. And I think that when we look at what's going on in the broader universe, to see that he has been vilified is just a perfect way to end, because it is we are using you to our own ends, and you think you have what you need, and you think you're getting what you want out of this, but long after you're dead, you'll still be helping me in the end. That comes from the Sith, and I think it is a great end to that arc, I think. It's for them to go to Sereno to steal his war chest, which is all the money that he was using for the war, because the galaxy at large thinks the war was entirely his fight. And that just simply wasn't the case, and it's such a great way to end that off. What else was there in this episode? The animation's great. I really like the animation. I'm interested to see where else they go this season. I would like to see them do other things. Hopefully they do they go to some other cool planets and do stuff like that. But, we don't know yet. But yeah, we'll wrap up there for today. I think we've gotten enough out of the Bad Batch episodes 1 and 2. If you want to go and watch them, they are on Disney Plus, included in your subscription, as usual. Tonight, contingent on this toothache, we will be seeing Megan, M3GAN, the horror movie about the campy horror movie about the killer robot doll thing, which is good because I felt like I've been getting too much sleep lately, and I haven't seen a horror movie in a while, so we'll see how this goes. It's rated PG-13, so it probably won't be that great. It won't be that gory or that scary, because like The Conjuring doesn't have a ton of gore or a ton of cursing or a ton of like sexual content, but that's rated PG-13. That's rated R because of how scary it is. If this is only PG-13, I'll probably be able to get through it, but we'll see. Yeah. So what else is there? There's that. Tomorrow we will be doing National Treasure, The Edge of History, the last 2 episodes to catch up on it. And then Saturday we'll be doing, what was the other show after that? Willow, the last 2 episodes to catch up with that. And then we will be back with, back to our regular schedule after that. On 30-minute reviews, on Saturday, Peter and I will be doing, the year in review. Oh no, we're doing it on this one. We're doing it on Beware of Spoilers. The year in review for 2022, and we're also going to be doing, and then actually we'll move Willow to Sunday. Yeah, we'll move Willow to Sunday. Just so that way I have a little bit of breathing room. And I also have to record an episode of 30-minute reviews about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This will be the first of the new format for 30-minute reviews, where we're going to be doing weekly movie reviews again. And Scott Pilgrim vs. the World will be the first one. That'll be up on Tuesday. So, we'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.